The first user at a practice will always be the administrator. After you've received your login credentials, the administrator will need to sign into Eazyscripts to set up a doctor-level user to begin prescribing. Only an administrator can create other users. After logging in, the administrator will see the Users tab in the left-hand sidebar. Again, only administrators will have the ability to see this tab. Click on the Users tab. The administrator can upload multiple doctors or patients and can create individual users. Click the Add User button in the upper right corner of the page. Click the drop-down arrow on the user level search bar and notice the different user levels available: Administrator, Doctor, Patient, Nurse, Assistant, and Accounting. Select Doctor. Before you begin, be sure you have the provider's MPI number. If they are prescribing controlled substances, also have their DEA number and DEA activation and expiration date. If the provider is licensed for and plans on treating patients with narcotic addiction, also have their narcotic addiction DEA number, along with the activation and expiration date on hand. All orange fields in this form are required. Complete the information box with the provider's relevant information: first name, last name, email, password, which must be at least 6 characters in length, date of birth, and gender. Expand the prescriber information section. Fill in the provider's MPI. The specialty qualifier is optional. Next, select the provider's specialty. Expand the clinic information section. Enter the clinic at which the provider is prescribing from. It should correlate with your subdomain. If the provider will be prescribing controlled substances, fill in the provider's DEA number, activation, and expiration date. Complete the fields for narcotic addiction treatment if applicable. Fill in the clinic's address information, as well as the appropriate phone numbers. Under the Permissions heading, tick the appropriate boxes. Typically, a provider will need the ability to write a new prescription, approve or deny a prescription refill, respond to a prescription change request, and to cancel a prescription. The Controlled Substance Permissions checkbox will only appear if the administrator has entered a valid DEA number for that provider. Tick the Controlled Substance Request box if applicable. Each provider's controlled substance permissions must be granted by a provider who already has permissions. The first provider in a practice may approve themselves, but each subsequent provider must be approved by another provider with controlled substance permissions. Click on the Doctor for Approval Request dropdown and either type in the name of the provider or search for the provider to approve controlled substance permissions for the newly created provider. Click the Save button and look for the word Success to appear in red letters underneath. The provider may now log in using their credentials entered in this form and begin prescribing. They can also change their password at any point going forward. If the provider is prescribing controlled substances, they will need to ensure they've completed the additional 2-factor authentication steps with ID.me, which can be found by going to the My Account tab and clicking on Prescriber.